Hey everyone, welcome to Twinstrology, where we talk about twin flames, astrology, and ascension. I hope that you're doing well. Today we're going to talk about the Taurus full moon eclipse and Mars retrograde. So, how has the energy been going for you? It's been pretty intense this week as we had Mars stop and turn around. And really, right now, Mars is not moving. He's been on the 25th degree since the last time I talked to you about the solar eclipse. And it's going to take him a minute to pick up speed and start moving the other direction. And so remember, Mars is our will. So when Mars is kind of just hanging out on 1 degree, it makes us feel like we have difficulty accomplishing anything. We don't feel motivated. And even though Mars is still going to be retrograde once he gets going again, I think that will change a little bit. But right now, like everybody's tempers are kind of on edge, and it's really easy to trigger people. People are just feeling angry, and men as well. Men, or I should say men especially, or those that carry the masculine energy, are really going to be affected most. And I'm seeing that some men that I know that are usually like so chill are suddenly getting angry as well. So you can bet that those people around you that tend to be more negative to begin with are going to be even more on edge. So yeah, it's a little bit tense right now. Um, but what I kind of want to start with today is, what happens as we're evolving and we're growing and we start to reach that state of union inside of us. And I think that this year has been a really big shift as far as more and more people being able to find that inner balance within themselves, especially, we've had this union squaring the nodes and the conclusion of the cycle that I talked about earlier in the year. And so we are mastering that energy a little bit more. And so what's happening is our focus is broadening a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean that we aren't still going to be focusing on our twin flame journey. But what's coming up for me as far as the energy right now has to do with our soul groups and healing the separation wound within our soul group. And this is really, really important work that we're going to be focusing on right now, especially as we come into the 1111 or the 22222 portal. So let me start by talking about Mars retrograde in Gemini. So yeah, Mars is healing the masculine energy. We know that. And what is really being brought up right now is a lot of deeply repressed emotions. Now, he's still on the same degree. So that Sabian symbol of winter frost in the woods that I mentioned last time is still the degree that he's on. And just like I talked about last time, I feel that Sabian is representing that the masculine, because of the things that they've experienced throughout their soul's journey, there's a tendency to be frozen within, to have these emotions all frozen up. Now, remember, we all have a masculine within us. So we are all dealing with this energy one way or the other. Plus, there's a lot going on within the feminine energy in relation to this as well that we're going to get into in a few minutes. But Mars is in Gemini, and we talked about communication being something that's going to be affected by this retrograde, but also duality. And the masculine energy is in the process of considering the word I wanted to use was process, but I don't want to use process 2 times in a sentence. Processing that sense of duality, because the duality equates to separation. And then when we look deeper at that separation wound and what the masculine is going to be healing during this retrograde, we have to look at wars and battles and needing to clear this war or violent energy in order for the masculine to move forward. This energy of war so deeply affecting to everybody on an individual level, both masculine and feminine, but also creating a lot of negative energy within the soul families that we all belong to. And, you know, very broadly, difficulties within humanity. And we're the forerunners, we're the forefront, we're the front line even on our own battle here of clearing and removing this energy. So one of the things that is helping with this right now is Mars and Mercury are in mutual reception. So Mars is in Mercury's sign and Mercury is in Mars' sign because Mercury is in Scorpio. So they can switch places, they can communicate, they can work together. And Mercury, the god of communication here, which will be, no, never mind. Mercury being in Scorpio is about diving deep, really getting into the shadow. And we have the sun, Mercury, Venus, and the South Node and the asteroid Amur, all in a conjunction jammed up in Scorpio. So really looking deeply within the shadow self and what do we need to do to help us communicate better? How can we be more authentic? How can we speak our truth? A lot of what has been hindering all of this that we've been trying to do for so long is Mars has our inner protector energy, has not wanted to let go. It's been wanting to protect us, and in that sense, it keeps us afraid of letting ourselves just be open. So this is a big thing that you're probably dealing with on some level, needing to express yourself. So that Mars energy, even though it's our will and our drive, it also holds us back a little bit because it doesn't want to expose too much of ourselves where we might put ourselves in a position where people are going to see something about us that we don't want them to see. So together, the planets in Scorpio and Mars retrograde are bringing up a lot of this old energy, and how it's coming out is through the heart chakra or the high heart chakra, depending. You might feel it in either place, but shame, guilt, grief, bitterness, distrust, hatred, all of that shadow energy, all of that negativity that we're holding on to from all these other timelines, it's lodged here. And you might feel it in your throat. So like how I feel it is my high heart, it gets activated and it vibrates and it's making me cough because it's like releasing that energy. And then it's like it has to be expelled from your body. So some of you might even have a cough. There's been a cough type illness going around that is not connected to that other thing that we've been dealing with for the last couple of years, but it's related to the expulsion and the clearing of the heart chakra and the throat chakra that we're going to be working through as Mars goes retrograde. So if you're feeling that, and it can feel also like a lot of pressure on your chest, it's another way, vibrating in your chest, heart palpitations, and of course, coughing, as I said, possibly a sore throat as well, or coughing that you might wonder what it's coming from, or maybe you might think it's allergies or something like that, and it's part of this energy being expelled. But, really, guys, we're processing a lot of super deep trauma right now. And that moon, the full moon, is conjunct Uranus on the exact same degree. And with those two planets being in Taurus, evolutionarily, it represents this trauma that we've been storing in our cellular DNA, is what I'm hearing. And we're needing to release that now. I am going to talk about some of the Sabian symbols today. And so let me just mention this one that the full moon is actually on, because I think it will make sense in regards to the energy that I'm talking about. This must be like the one that I don't have marked. I did have it marked. Okay, so the Sabian is one that I actually mentioned, I think during Lionsgate. I think the South Node was on it. A symbolic battle between swords, who are the disciples of might, and torches, the disciples of enlightenment. And I know someone misheard me say that last time, so let me say that again. A symbolic battle between swords, the disciples of might, and torches, the disciples of enlightenment. So let's talk about some of the key words here. The battle of might versus light, the spear of destiny, differences, arguments, the Inquisition, the Crusades, Hitler, bringing love and light to war zones, the pen being mightier than the sword, peace marches, torches, weapons, the might of the media, controlling those around with rational or brute force rather than with inner enlightenment or knowledge, people arguing over ideals, forcing opinions on each other, religious conflict, war rallies, and propaganda. I know that was a lot, but I felt it was important to share those because I'm sure that you can see the connections. And ironically or not, the full moon eclipse is on election day here in America. So I think you're probably seeing, if you've been, even if you try to avoid it, every day my mailbox is full of propaganda from both parties trying to get my vote. And I don't want to equate parties with the idea that one party's right and one party's wrong, or one party is the swords and one party is the light. I don't want to do that. But what I mean to equate it with is how we can get stuck in kind of this idealism and the desire to protect, enforce, even with brutality or violence, the belief that our ideals are the ones that are important or that we are right. But another way this is coming out is, like I said, my guides were talking to me about splits within the soul group. And again, I don't want to make it like, I don't want to bring a judgment to it. However, one of the ways that it was expressed to me was in the terms of like dark versus light. And, like the one that they showed me that was connected to where I live, it's an ancient one. So a lot of times we're focused on certain wars and battles because it's in recorded history. and we know about them. So for instance, if you live in certain places in Europe that were battlefields during World War I or World War II, then you're probably very keyed into that. But there's a lot of places on the earth that have had battles, and some of these more like battles. I want to. I want to kind of take that back. Let me start over again. So we have a lot of places on the grid that are connected to battles that are not in recorded history, that are ancient. Like this battlefield that I was guided to, there's no human record that there was ever anything there. That's how old it is. It's very much connected to like tribes, but before the tribes even had names, or they were different tribes than the tribes we associate within this area now. So sometimes you may actually be on or connected to something and you may not know it, or you may need to tie into it through your intuition. But so going along with this, you might find that energy within people that you consider soul family or that are connected to your soul group that you're interacting with, there can be some tense energy coming up. And maybe it's energy with friends or family that suddenly things are coming up and making it difficult for you to communicate or navigate the situation. Or it could be that, people that you have karma with, people that you've had this feeling of separation with, that energy is getting kicked up again. So let me see if I can give you an example of that. So let's say there's a karmic person in your life. And for some of you, this is going to come out with karmic relationships. And it could be karmic relationships that you're still in, or karmic relationships that maybe you thought you cleared or that you've left, and something could be coming up because all these timelines are getting stirred up, and that old energy is being activated again in ways that we don't fully understand. But what happens is with this Mars retrograde, negativity and arguing and disagreements are likely to come up. But part of that is learning how to communicate in a better way so that you can create a bridge. That's what they're saying. That's what they're showing me. We want to be able to create a bridge with other people, even people that we have negative karma with. But that negative karma is about to come out some way. Now, what I heard this morning when I was beginning to channel messages for what I was going to talk about was, you're not going to control me. And so that's probably a big thing that will be active in the energy, is you're not wanting to have other people control you. So again, those karmic relationships are going to be activated likely as we go through retrograde, because a lot of what that karma is, especially for light workers, is there's people in your life, sometimes even your spouse or romantic relationship, that is somehow trying to dominate you. And this is where it can be connected to twin flames, because a lot of twin flames, especially the masculine, are still in romantic relationships. their karmic relationships, I should say. What I mean by that is they haven't cleared the karma. But as I said earlier, even if you've left that relationship, that doesn't necessarily mean that all the karma is cleared, because you could still be getting activated into it. But what might happen now during this period is that other person might try to control you more than ever. And your attitude is going to be, no, you're not going to control me. And you're going to want to break free of that situation. So we'll have to see exactly how that's going to play out. But it's all connected. If that's happening to you, that's all connected to the old timelines of different splits, battles, massacres, violence, etc. Now, Mars is making an in conjunction to Pluto as well. And Pluto in Capricorn can represent what we take when we win. So when we have wars, and then, to the victor go the spoils, sort of thing. And the victor gets to make the rules and make the decisions and becomes the authority figure. And then that energy is Pluto in Capricorn. So think about those energies. Again, we have this election coming up. And so all these things are kind of coming to a head, if you will. Now, Mercury too. Mercury is not just about communication, but about our thought processes, strategizing. Mercury assists when we're trying to be diplomatic, because he rules our thoughts and communication. Of course, there's other things that play into that in the chart as well, but I think that's all going to be active. And then we have Saturn, who is squaring the full moon. And Saturn in Aquarius, I feel, is representing the limitations and the fears that happen when groups try to come together, right? Because Aquarius represents the group. And of course, that's where we want to come together with our soul family, interact with our soul family, create a sense of community, etc. But with Saturn here, we're needing to also clear out the negative, the times where we didn't achieve coming together as a cohesive group, the times where we didn't achieve a sense of community. And when I tapped into this timeline that's here, the thing that I felt the most was the pain of separation and like pitting brother against brother. So it was like one tribe, and then the tribe wanted to split, and there were two different things that were desired, and an agreement couldn't be reached, or there were certain people within the group that wouldn't allow an agreement to be reached. And so it ended up coming to blows and violence. And that was very painful. I mean, anytime we have violence is painful, but when it's your soul family, when it's your brother, when it's a member of your tribe that maybe you grew up with and you loved, that's very painful. And I felt like that energy, it wasn't Atlantis, but it reminded me very much of Atlantis and the breakdown in Atlantis. And as we fell into that state of duality, how painful it was to feel those tears within our soul group. And now, as we're evolving and ascending, we're wanting to bring that soul group back together. But there's still these old wounds that are being activated. And Even with people in our life that we have negative feeling towards, or we're holding negative feelings towards, that we have past karma with. And sometimes, you know, we know about that past karma. And that can make it difficult when you remember experiences of, hey, that person killed me. I've got a lot of those where I remember, or I see, it's not, of course, I don't see it right away, but when it's time for that relationship to end or something to clear, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that person, they were really mean to me. They killed me. They enslaved me. They tortured me. But I'm sure I did that to other people as well. And that's something that we all have to come to terms with. We all have had a shadow in one respect or another. And it's time to really let this go. And of course, we have Union still squaring the nodes as well. And Union is on the Sabian symbol. Two lovebirds sitting on a fence and happily singing. So there really is this energy of coming together, of wanting to come together. It's there underneath, but honestly, it's going to be really hard to feel at times as we work through this eclipse portal. Saturn is on a forest fire finally being quenched, which is a good sign because that forest fire can represent, you know, our anger or battles or that sort of thing. And Saturn is trying to quench that. This is one of those times where Saturn is actually helping us. And Saturn's been doing a lot as he's moving through Aquarius to help us clear our fears and karma around this group and community energy so that we can, you know, begin to more and more access the age of Aquarius, which is unity. Now, Chiron is back on one of our favorite Sabians that we've been talking about. A bomb which failed to explode is now safely hidden from discovery. So, yeah, let's look at the key words. Pressure valves, tantrums, frustrations, tempers that simmer, explosive behavior, bombs, lessons in self-restraint, discharging nervous energy, stress, inappropriate things and thinking the secret is safe, repressing emotions, undefined anger, feeling like you're in a pressure cooker. Definitely kind of goes with the energy, but again, that kind of message of war or violence coming through loud and clear with that Sabian. Now, as I talked about a minute ago, we've got this stellium in Scorpio, and the planets are all really very much in a line. South Node on 13, Amur on 14, Mercury on 15, and the Sun on 16. The South Node is still on the Sabian telephone lineman at work, installing new connections, right? Healing that sense of communication. Mercury is on a girl's face, breaking into a smile. And I want to just mention some of the key words here. Breaking the ice is the first thing. So when we talk about those frozen emotions, one of the ways to break the ice is just creating that sense of being open, of creating connection. I think that's actually, there's one in here that goes with what I mentioned, which was creating a bridge. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. Distance bridged between people. Some of the key words here. Making eye contact, changing one's expression or demeanor. like how our face looks has a lot to do with how people respond to us, and creating that sense of connection with another person. It can also work the other way, and that's where these negative keywords come in. False happiness to satisfy others' needs, covering up how one really feels, putting on a show of happiness, lack of sincerity, refusing to communicate. So, again, being authentic, the things that have stopped us from being authentic. And the more that we ascend, the more sensitive we become. We're not fooled by that fake smile. We're not fooled by the happy pictures on social media. You know, we're not fooled by the acts that people try to put on. It's not about what people say, it's about people's energy. And yeah, the more we ascend, the fact of the matter is we can't really hide this as much anymore, because people connect to each other on vibration, and your vibration is always going to tell the truth. Now, Venus is on a woman filled with her own spirit, is the father of her own child. And this, I feel, has to do with that connection of the masculine and feminine, the balance of that, but also like healing with your own masculine energy or healing with your own feminine energy. There's very much this need to do that right now. Mentions father too. And I know this is not quite what the Sabian means, but I feel very prevalent in the energy is going to be inner child work and reaching some conclusions about your mother and father. That's related. It's related to the shadow and related to a lot of the frozen inner emotions. So let's talk about the feminine energy for a moment. So a lot of this has been about the masculine side, healing the masculine. And we have to consider very much the feminine's understanding and emotions that the feminine is carrying around all of this. So Lilith is in Cancer, and at the eclipse is conjunct exactly Pallas Athena, but Lilith and Pallas Athena have been traveling together in Cancer. Now, Lilith is our wounded feminine, and Pallas Athena is our desire to be our true, authentic self. But Pallas Athena is also the goddess of war and can be very masculine, but Pallas Athena is also connected to justice, especially as far as Pallas Athena on the spiritual inner plane. She's connected to a sense of justice. She's also one of the lords of karma. But the feminine is getting activated with this anger energy. I've been talking about this, like I said, for a while, a few months at least. And I think that even some of you that maybe weren't feeling that or weren't connecting with that are beginning to feel it now. A lot of it is going to be anger at your twin, but you may find that you're angry at just men in general, or masculine energy, I should say, as well. But even like other males that are close to you, you might find that you're just frustrated, angry, don't want to talk to them, or maybe you want to tell them off. It can be hard to restrain your emotions, and that is Lilith coming out. And Lilith is also opposing Pluto. But a lot of this has to do with war and the patriarchal energy as well. So let's think for a minute how the feminine is related to this. So traditionally, especially, war was kind of men's work. And, nowadays, women are allowed to join the service and that sort of thing. But traditionally, it was the territory of the men. But women experienced trauma in a lot of ways because of war. So first of all, it could have been your son going off to battle. It could have been your child going off to battle. It could have been your husband going off to battle, never to be seen again. Or you didn't know what was going to happen to them, and that was very painful. Being a victim of war or violence. So being killed, being raped, taken and enslaved, having your children taken. I had an interesting experience a few years ago. I was told to go to Gettysburg to do some work there, and I assumed that I was going to be doing work on the battlefields. And I had been to the battlefields before. And once I got to Gettysburg, it turned out to be a little bit different than what I thought it was going to be, because what I was really clearing was the divine feminine's pain and trauma in the aftermath of war and battle. Now, during the Civil War, some women disguised themselves as men because they wanted to fight for their ideals. But, it was obviously very painful for women. Some mothers, for example, had their sons fighting on two different sides during the Civil War. But in particular, the Battle of Gettysburg taught me a lot, because it was, I think the bloodiest battle ever on American soil. And a lot of the cleanup of that was done, or it fell on the shoulders of women, which, can you imagine that? I remember learning about, for example, a woman who had come over from Germany, and her husband was in charge of taking care of the cemetery there. And her husband was, either he was a soldier or he was killed. I think he was actually a soldier and he was someplace else. But this woman who was 6 months pregnant, I think I read that she dug like 60 graves herself. That was another way that women were affected. Another way is that there's an orphanage there in Gettysburg. And what you may not realize or know is that when women during that time, if their husband was killed in battle, they often sent their children away. Women weren't allowed to work. So if their husband was dead and they had no way to support themselves, they would take your children and put them in an orphanage. So that's trauma to women and also to children. A lot of times women would follow armies and do cooking or wash clothes or do sewing for the soldiers. And they were often caught in, say there was a battle and you were a woman and you were following the army, you could be taken hostage or kidnapped or raped by the invader. So a lot of this, I feel, is needing to be processed by the divine feminine right now as well. Now, another way this is showing up in the chart is we have asteroid Odysseus in conjunction to asteroid Penelope. So I know a lot of you are connected to the energy of Odysseus and Penelope, and that has to do with war, because Odysseus went off to fight in the Trojan War and he left his wife Penelope at home. And then he got lost on his way trying to get back home after the war, and they were separated for a very long time. And Penelope stayed true to Odysseus, and she believed that he was going to come back. But that to me just highlights once again the energy of war, the effects of war on our hearts, on our psyche, on our ability to be open, our ability to be loving, and all the trauma that that creates. And I am seeing in so many ways the way that trauma from a lot of timelines are showing up in my reality in really incredible ways. And the soulmates that I'm connected to, and even like, I think every day I'm like getting new downloads about how someone that I know was part of this or part of that. And I could see it with what's happening with them, how this energy is getting kicked up in their life. So it's very interesting. It's really like we're all so connected. I want to mention the Sabian symbol for Lilith and Pallas. A woman and two men, or a man and two women cast away on a small island. Now, I want to mention this because this actually points to karmic relationships and third-party interference, because we're dealing with a woman and two men. Keywords are feeling fenced in, too little room to move, lack of privacy, relationship triangles, isolation, love affairs, too many people or having no one, polygamy, competition, fighting over one's territory, the specter of someone else, jealousy, sexual infidelity, misleading relationships, being shut out of a relationship, not being able to choose, having too many people to consider. So I definitely think that this is very active in the energy too, especially for the masculine, as this is going retrograde. And when we talk about duality, they, in many ways, if they're still with their karmic person, they are going to be processing, like, what is their truth? Which person is their truth? Is it their karmic or is it their twin flame? And when Mars goes direct and Mars comes out of shadow, is the masculine going to be willing to step up? Is the masculine going to have cleared enough of that grief and cleared their throat that they'll be able to make a decision? Remember, Gemini is the sign that rules the Lovers card. And being torn between two lovers can be one meaning of the Lovers card. So yeah, definitely feel like that energy is part of this shift. And Lilith and Pallas Athena are aspecting Penelope and Odysseus, and they're aspecting Penelope by a square. So that's very much connected to the myth of Penelope and what she went through as being a archetype of the wounded feminine. Now, Mars as well is also opposing karma and the asteroid Pandora. So when we think about Pandora and we think about Pandora's box, you know, Pandora's box holds all of the ills of the world. And when Pandora opened the box, all the ills in the world escape. So, we could see those ills as being part of this energy of war and violence. But what I'm seeing is like we each have our own Pandora's box, and that's where we stuff our old emotions or the things that we don't want to face, our shadow self, the things that are too painful for us to process, we lock it in this box. But at some point, the lid is going to come off this box. And, right now with Mars opposing Pandora, it could happen anytime. And karma is there as well. Not quite in aspect, but as we move towards the Sagittarius new moon, Mars will make an exact opposition with karma. So that will once again be activating this. Now, 11/11 is coming up a couple days after. We talked about how that is the opening of the 222 portal as well. So 11/11 is a big day. And I would suggest if you're near a place where there's been trauma and this kind of wound of separation caused by war or violence, maybe you could spend a little time there working on clearing that energy and transmuting some of it. So thank you so much for watching. If you would like a personal reading with me, my website is twinstrology.com. Just so you're aware, I am completely booked for November and don't have any openings for anything until sometime in December. But I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Happy 11/11, everybody. Sending you a lot of love.